What's going on, world? Welcome back to another edition to the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me is a legendary person. And I say legendary because some people don't get their roses when they deserve them. And I feel like if you're not a celebrity and you're not showing off everything, then it means the impact is not there. We'll get into the story, but I just want to say you are a legend in my eyes for the work that you're doing.
Thanks,
I
Reg.
I'll let you introduce yourself because I like to make sure I don't miss a credential or any highlight that you want to share. Please introduce yourself to the people.
So thanks for having me here. My name is Valencia Peterson, but most people call me Coach V. I am a football coach here in Delaware County right now. I've been with Penwood High School for a number of years. And actually, I just literally stepped down from actually being committed to that team solely to work with other teams in the Philadelphia area. So I'm working with a number of teams here in Philadelphia, working with the young men on the football team. My organization is Open Door Abuse Awareness Prevention, short for ODAAP. We are a violence prevention program, working through a trauma-informed lens for our young men. So we are working right now with 300 young men overall, because we're working like with 6 different teams. And a lot of these teams that we work with, we've been working with them for years. I've seen freshmen come and go at this point, and keeping in touch with some of the young men that we work with in college. But I started doing this work in 2014, where I specifically decided to do violence prevention work using the medium of sports. Basically, that passion was birthed from my own trauma. At a very early age, my father killed my mom. And, without really understanding why and how and just all those things that came along with that trauma in my life. I think it took me until I was in my 40s to be able to genuinely give back, because I understood more myself and my own trauma. But one of the reasons why I started working through the medium of sports is because it really, it hit me that my dad didn't wake up that morning and just decide to kill my mom. Oh, I'm going to kill my wife today. No, it wasn't like that. A lot of things build up to that point where that kind of violence takes place. And I thought that if I could get to my young men now, ninth grade, and there's many studies that say it should be even sooner, but this is just my medium, this is my lane. If I get to them earlier, we could help prevent some of those, maybe the same actions that my dad committed. So I don't go into working with my young men expecting them to be abusers, but I do go in working with my young men, making sure that they understand what makes them tick. Why would they, who they are, what's going on with them, and most of all, at the end of the day, a lot of things are not their fault. So, I mean, really doing a lot of, not trying to do it, but prevention really connects with mental health, right? So we're doing violence prevention, sexual assault, domestic violence, and just period violence prevention through ODAAP. So I'm really glad to be here and just talk a little bit about what we do, and grateful that you would have me here.
No, thank you for coming on. Oh, it's some feedback. Let me see. I'm gonna mute it so I don't hear the feedback. Do you hear feedback on your end?
No.
All right, maybe it's just me. So I know the why, and we'll get into the why a little bit. But the how, like how did you even get started working with you? Like where did that begin at?
It began where I learned about a curriculum, an evidence-based curriculum called Coaching Boys into Men. That was a violence prevention curriculum. And as a matter of fact, let me just show you really quickly so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I started working with this thing right here, Coaching Boys into Men. It was a curriculum out of a company in Futures Without Violence in California. I looked over the curriculum and I thought this would be a a good segue, if you will, into having some very good conversation with young men about violence. And the thing about it was, I realized it was through the medium of sports. I had been doing intervention in domestic violence for 4 years prior to doing ODAAP or creating ODAAP, because that intervention, I was always behind the 8 ball. You feel me? The act had already occurred,
Right.
and something's got to give. So one day I was walking around the field, the track, and there was a football, game going on, practice going on. So I walked up to the coach and I said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a violence prevention program for boys?" And that was the beginning of everything.
Wow.
The beginning of everything. That coach said, yeah, because he had just become a head coach. He had never been a head coach before. He was looking for something different outside of the X's and O's. And I came along with this, and he just ate it up. And we saw such, that team, I think they hadn't won but one game, So their record was pretty bad. But I started working with this team, and they ended up winning the Del Val championship. And the Huffington Post ended up writing an article about it that year, how it was a big turnaround and the guys are more focused and things like that. So it was the beginning of something pretty beautiful, in 2014. And so we've been keeping it going ever since.
Now, and that's again, I'm gonna keep giving you your roses, and that's why I say the legendary thing, because I just what I can't fathom is why aren't more people implementing this? You reaching the young men through a medium that they're already there. Why isn't it like a prerequisite for sports, entertainment, whatever the case may be, of working with young Black men? Why isn't it a prerequisite? What barriers do you see of like why others are not implementing it?
Now, this is a little up your alley, believe it or not. What I have found, honestly, is, how do you say this? What I've found that a lot of our Black men in particular, when it comes to bringing in a program like this, it's a self reflective type program. Because when I first started working with these group of coaches, the first thing I had to do was do a training with them. And once I started doing my training, one of the coaches said, "Well, if that's the case, I'm an abuser," right? And I said, "Okay." And instead of him having an epiphany, he disappeared.
Wow.
Now here I am laying out what abuse is, okay? And he realizes, okay, I fit the bill. But instead of a change, he disappeared. He left the coaching staff. Because to bring us on is to welcome these hard questions. Now, most football coaches, they just want to play ball. They don't want to dive into what makes you tick, coach. Because every coach that I work with, I was just on with the coaches of Truman before I got on with you. Every coach that I work with, they are never the same, let alone their players. Because we're diving into things like, why would you abuse somebody? What makes you think that's okay? What happened to you that you think it's okay? So with ODAAP, when we start working with our young men, inadvertently coaches are impacted too. And quite frankly, some men aren't ready for that. I mean, even with the Glacier clinics, that's a big football clinic, that happens every year, it's the Moncho, and I just got a call before I got on here with you that they're going to allow me to speak there, which, Reggie, is amazing, because this is the Glacier clinic, you don't even see women around there, And as a football coach, I've gone to a few of those clinics. I remember I went to Baltimore to a clinic one time, and they had closed all the women bathrooms, on the floor where the clinic was taking place. And I was trying to go to the bathroom, and they were like, "Oh, everything's men up here." I was like, "Why?" You know what I mean? And then you have somebody like me, I'm a Black woman, I'm talking to you about, hey, what makes you tick? Explore some stuff with me. Like a lot of my young men, one of the biggest ways that we were successful and I don't want to sound cliche about this, with the team in 2014, is that I saw more young men cry,
Mm.
and as we made sure that they understood it was okay to express your feelings and emotions, you saw the release and the tension. Whereas a lot of times young men are being told, don't you dare cry. You got to be a man, right? This is football, right? So some of the things we talk about in ODAAP are a little bit like, it's what makes you tick. Why are you doing what you're doing? And a lot of times in the world of sports and football in particular, it's about being hard nosed and nothing else. So as many times as I've tried to do my curriculum or my program now, because it's much bigger than that, coaching boys and the men, what I come up against is that alpha, nah, we got this. In the meantime, that little boy over there is really hurting, but we got this. If you know what I'm saying? It's sometimes a difficult thing sometimes to get other men to understand the value of a program like us
No,
and
and
what we
that
bring.
that was what I was going to ask you. And then even I got to say this because it's bothering me, and I have to say that they didn't allow you. You deserve to be in there. They didn't allow you to
All
do
right,
anything.
all
You
right,
deserve to
all
be
right.
there.
I
Um,
definitely deserve to be there without a shadow of a doubt, but unless they opened that daggone door, I wouldn't have been able to walk through it.
yes, but the
So
second
it
part
allowed
is
me in that they opened the door.
yes. No, I got you. I got you. The second part of that is, and I think you talked about it, but if anything, you could shed a light on. I have an empathy towards like the organization I'm a part of, Black Men Hill. It's a woman-led
Yes.
organization helping black men, and so with you being a woman-led organization helping black boys,
Mm-hmm.
you already named a few of them. How has that experience been trying to, I don't want to say integrate, but get others to accept that, like you said, open the door instead of you having to push it down?
A lot of, you know what? For me, it has been showing the coaches that I'm genuine and that I'm transparent with them. I coaches, just like anybody else, they want to know if you're serious. One thing I know about coaching is that when coaches are coaching, they only have a little bit of time to deal with their players. And they don't want to insert anything extra. They just want to do what they're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? So I realize that I have to build trust in a relationship with those coaches so that they realize and understand I really care about them and their players. Now, there's coaches that I have pursued for a year or two because I saw something in that man that I wanted to help cultivate and I thought would help the young boys that he was coaching. Now, it took me a while saying, hey, listen, why don't you go in our program? Hey, listen, why don't you get in our program? Finally, he says, okay. And he'll tell you right to this day, he's never been the same
Mm,
because he's had to sit down and look at himself and go, what the heck am I doing? Because
mm,
ODAP again is more than just, it's a deeper way of looking at violence prevention from a trauma-informed lens, not so much don't commit that violent act. It's always deeper to why would you? So if we're talking about the why, everybody's going to wonder why with themselves first. So I think it can be very intimidating to have me on your sidelines sometimes, honestly, because you know that I am looking at you to see that you're doing more than just, yelling at that young man, that you're actually taking care of him as well. And a lot of times coaches, they just want to play that game, do those X's and O's and be done. You know what I mean? They want to
mm-hmm.
be done. So the coaches that I work with are very, very special to me and very unique. And I'll tell you, I work with Amotep, Coach Deb Johnson. You know what I mean? I work with Lincoln, Coach Akeem Cooper. These men have allowed me in their playbook. And I'm gonna tell you, and they'll tell you, they don't just let anybody on their field. They're not having that. Amotep doesn't let anybody just on their field like that. Mm-mm. You know, and then there's Mark King, Malik Jones, fully there for his players. I can go on his field at any time, and of course there's Truman, Penwood, and I'm now in Delaware. But these coaches, they've proven that they don't mind they're in a phase where they can still learn a little more. They haven't arrived, right? And I'm doing the same. And I appreciate that because I learn from them just as they learn from me,
Mhm.
I
One
learn from them too.
one of the question that comes to mind is the shift that we have saw in football in the way CTE is more important now. Mental health of the players is more important now. Even the way we tackle. I used to play football. Wasn't the best. Wasn't the worst. But it was, you were taught to just go head down and go shoot them at them. And I feel like you're adding a different component where uh we are football players are taught to be violent in the sense of like, hey, you go out there and headhunt, where
Yes, yes.
and then they expect you to be quote unquote normal after turning on that switch. It's almost like be barbaric only for this certain amount of time. What is that delicate balance of like how you say like the X's and O's versus like this is a human being and a person?
Right. Oh, first of all, let me just say I love a good hit. Hit them and hit them hard and put them on their butt. You know, understand what I'm saying? Like, I cannot stand wimpy football. That drives me crazy. Like, no, man, hit them. I mean, oh, don't patty cake. Knock him on his butt. So, I mean, I'm all about it. I just want to say that for real. I'm really all about it. One of the things that we concentrate on, ODAAP in the violence prevention program with a very violent sport is knowing when to turn it off, knowing how. We give our players the tools and teach them how to turn it off. I'll never forget it. Tyree Washington, gold Olympic, played in the NFL. He said to me, Coach V, my coaches, they knew that I had anger problems. And they were glad because they could use it to their advantage on the field. But he said, nobody told me how to take it, how to deal with it off the field. No one helped me with it off the field. And that's what ODAAP does. We help for the time when you're off the field by giving you tools to help regulate yourself, and that's very important. And coaches, more and more coaches are understanding the need for that. Because your player is not going to play if he's ineligible because he can't control himself, right? Because he's getting suspended, because he's fighting in school, or because he can't sit still long enough to get good grades in order to be eligible. So coaches who want guys to like be on a team and be eligible, they understand the value and the need to give them the tools to regulate themselves. So when it comes to the violent part of football, really what I found is giving our players, these young men, the tools to know how to turn it off is what's important. Giving them the scenarios and giving them the examples of when and how to be what they are. Because there's a time for everything, right? There's a time to hit hard and there's a time to fall back. And if they don't have that tool or the wherewithal to make choose, then that's a problem. And a lot of our young men left to themselves don't. They really don't. They're on 100 all the time. With, in particular, let me tell you what they're in 100 on, especially in Philadelphia: fear, terror, alert, and alarm. Our players, our young men in Philadelphia, these four things are ravaging their brain, constantly looking over their shoulder, afraid, fear, alarm. Am I next? So they're always on 100 here. So we put a lot of emphasis on helping our young men know how to turn it off. That's what it comes down to. Be violent, but they need to learn how to turn it off.
I believe that 100%. And again, thank you for the work that you do. So how do you think that correlates, or how can we implement this in your eyes and views? Because we had one of the highest murder rates of last year, and especially young men is a big portion of that in Philadelphia. Um, I think you said a solution, but how do we implement that in other spaces, if that makes sense? Like,
you mean like other than just on the field?
Yeah.
One of the things that I've done that I found to be successful too. Because here's the thing, when we started working with the team in 2014 and they started making it to the championship, and my young men felt like they could beat themselves, cry, or whatever they needed to do, we saw a whole shift in the school.
Mm,
Because sports holds some weight in the school. I mean, it's a big influence, right? So with my young men on the football team, you saw a shift with them where they were holding their heads up higher, of course, now because they're winning, but also they're remembering everything I taught them in the huddle, which was how to treat a woman, how to be respectful, how to consider your next move. So much so that the administration in the school started seeing a difference in our young men, like girls would, like one of my young men, a girl slapped him across the face. Normally he would have decked her, but he stepped back and he thought about ODAAP and he said, no, I can't touch a woman, right? And so what we saw in that school that year was the fighting amongst the young men went down. There was more regulation in that school just from starting this one violence prevention program on a team that started to win. They made they caused a chain reaction in the school, right? So from there, what we decided to do, what I decided to do was work with different groups in the school and start doing the same thing I was doing on the football field inside of the classroom. Now I was doing it with the track team, the school would allow me to come in and just walk into a classroom and do like a 15-minute blurb about something. Now the whole school was being affected by these little blurbs of violence prevention, but not really directly, just things like, for instance, if I went into a class, I'd get a discussion quickly going about, I give them a scenario about some situation, and the whole class livens up trying to figure out what we should do. What should the guy do? What should the girl do? And they would come up with something, and I'd leave the classroom, right? They're in a total different space now, and they're really thinking about this thing, but it's
mm.
real life scenarios. It's real life scenarios. So we kind of did something outside the box with the school like that. And we really saw a difference in how the school was starting to come about. The boys they were making a difference. I think that I'm just saying that's how it happened.
One of the questions that I have, and I always think about too, because a lot of trauma is developed in the home, and they go see a coach V, they play football, they get some of these tools, and then they have to go back to environments that aren't conducive to their healing. How do you help them cope with that, or move around? Because it's like, I hear you, Coach V. I'm on the field, I'm using this, I'm in school, and I can see you, but eventually you're not going to be there, and you don't understand what I'm going through at home. Like, what do you say to that young man, or how do you get them through that?
I'll tell you a story. Temple University asked me to come and speak to them about the work we were doing, because around that time, the Huffington Post had did an article and they were like, what is going on? So I decided to take a player with me that day. I figured, hey, you want to come with me? He said, yeah, Miss, I'll come, Miss B. And so we got to Temple University and I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I looked at my player and I said, listen, how you feel about going up there and telling what we're doing? Because it hit me, Reg. If
Mm.
he can't say what I'm doing, I'm not doing anything.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? If my player can't get up there and say what I'm doing, then I'm doing nothing. So I
Mm.
thought, you know what? Do you want to tell them what we're doing? That's what I said to my player. He said, yeah, I'll get up there. He wasn't shy. He gets up there and he says, I'm really proud of what we're learning, in his words, all his words. I'm really proud of what we're learning because my dad hasn't been treating my mom right.
Mm.
And now I'm teaching my dad how to treat my mom.
Ooh.
I'm learning, and now I'm teaching my dad. Reggie, I was not ready for that. I did not know he was going to say that. I just let him go up there to say whatever he wanted to say, uncensored, ready to, pick up the pieces, whatever he said. He went up there and said, I knew nothing about this. I knew nothing about this prior to this. He went up there and said, my dad has been treating my mom wrong. And now I'm teaching my dad how to treat my mom. normalized behavior that he has lived with for a very long time has now been like, uh-oh, wait a minute. That's not right, Dad. I met his dad after that. Okay. Shook his hand. How you doing? Hi, Coach V. My son tells me a lot about you. You know, and that same young man. Now, speaking of, it's interesting that you say, then you don't see him anymore. Quite to the opposite with ODAAP. One of our mottos is we don't love you and leave you. We never love you and leave you. That same young man, I'm in touch with that same young man. He knows he can hit me up at any time. ODAAP is family. It's not a program. It's a family. So I took that young man out to breakfast after that. We chopped it up some more, and to this day, he knows he can call me anytime he wants. And with social media, who do you not really stay in contact with?
That's true.
All right. Half of those young men are following me on social media. You know how many DMs I get, Reginald? You know what I mean? But more importantly, let me say this to you also. That my vice president on my board right now, his name is Christian Santos. I met him in high school. He teaches 8th grade in Boston. He was one of the very first young men that I met in 2014, and he's my vice president now.
Wow.
All my young men, even, one of the young men over in Emotep, he got a lot of offers in school, to other schools, and Enai White. And he said to me, Coach V, I'm coming back. I said, I know you are, baby. I know you're coming back, right? Because I done been with you so many years on this daggone field. I know you coming back to see me. You know what I mean? And that's what ends up happening. Just like coaches, like kids never forget their coaches. It's the same with ODAAP, because we're on the sideline. Coaches are saying, ODAAP is here, take a knee. And the things we're pouring into them are life-changing. They're things that make them think about themselves. If my players were to come on now, they could all tell you, this is how ODAAP has affected me. This is what I learned. This is what I'm putting into practice. So I don't expect, honestly, any of the young men that I've worked with from Del Valle University, or anywhere, because I've been there too, they know they're always welcome back home. They're always welcome back home. ODAAP is home for them. So there's no loving and leaving them at all. Honestly.
Well, no, I can agree with you on that. Like, as far as like, and I actually, while you were talking, was able to find the article for people to reference as far as,
that's it.
Yeah, I say I've been doing my research, Coach Vic.
yeah. I'm telling you, that's Answer. That's Dave. Dave's in college now. Like these young men, that's it's so funny. I can tell you stories about all of them. That's Zach right there. Oh yeah, I see these young men still, and that was in 2014. That was a very, very great year. Great year. Great year.
And I love the title, Coach of Culture. That actually might be the title of this podcast once we're done. But yeah. I do attest to that. I just know about them people that go home, like they got to go back to these communities, and they carry a Coach V in their heart. They carry that in their heart of like, what, Coach V, they're missing some of that love. And like you said, and it's like they kind of got to resort to that love that they got from you that they probably weren't getting where they needed it from.
Indeed, my birthday just passed last Friday. And I tell
you,
hey, thank you. Let me tell you something. The calls that I got from my players, okay, made my life. They're in college now. Coach V, what's going on? Man, how are you? That's the life that we want to live with ODAAP. We want to be family. Again, if you're having a hard time, I even recently was talking to the guys about, like, if you feel like you need to, get away where nobody knows where you are, let's do that. I mean, in the city right now. So we're evolving to whatever our young men need, for real. Whatever they need, we're making it happen for them. So, yeah.
I do want to go back because you mentioned over it, and I find the time of, even with like Taz and the Black Man Hill, I'm thinking about a Coach V and the ODAAP. But as you, as an individual, like as a person, you had a story before ODAAP. You know what I mean? Like you had a story of like, and you breezed over it, and I don't even know if you have a chance to talk about it as much, but like the impact of the situation between your parents and how that
Yeah.
impacted you and affected you. I know that may have been the cause of why you started it, but how had you processed that?
You know, I grieve to this day that I never had a mother. It's a grieving for me. I was afraid of my dad. He went to prison for a little while, but eventually he got out. He's gone now. He's died a while ago now. But I was always afraid of him, you know. And I have been married now for 35 years.
Congrats.
And I don't know, you know, my husband was the first man that I saw that showed me what a dad would have been like.
Mm.
I looked at the way he is and was with my daughters, and I thought, wow, that's what I missed, you see. And it's a very interesting thing to experience. And it's also another interesting thing because growing up in an environment like that, I was in survival mode constantly survival mode. Like everything is survival. And that's where our guys are right now. Like I never thought that I'd live to see 21 because everything was just so messed up. I got the story like everybody else got. You're wondering where you're going to be. Nobody's taking care of you. What you're going to eat. Like it was just a complete dysfunctional mess. And when I got married, there were some things that it wasn't in me. Like that homemaker type thing. No, I really wasn't. I hated cooking. Why? Because no one really taught me how. You know what I mean? I was just like fending for myself. A lot of things I just didn't really know. I really didn't know. And I would never forget when my daughter said to my husband one day, he said, Mom didn't grow up like that, Dad.
Mm.
I had my own aha moments in my life, where I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably why I'm like that, the way I am, in certain ways. But I cried, honestly, to be just 100% transparent. I cried as I watched the way my husband interacted with my daughters because I saw what I could have had or what I missed out on. And like I said, to this day, there's a grieving inside of me about never having a mother, And so when you think I never was truly, truly nurtured, but now I'm trying to nurture my girls and I'm doing the best I can. But really, the truth is for me, God has been the center of my life. And at a very early age, I came to know the Lord. And, you know, I've walked in that faith for a very long time with love being my motor, my engine, toward other people. But truthfully speaking, I don't think I would have gotten by without my faith, honestly. Without faith in God, I don't think I would have lasted. I think I would be dead, honestly. I really do. But it was a rough life to live. And I know a lot of people are living it right now. And I think that helps me just kind of, you know, be extra sensitive to people because you never know where people are coming from and what they're going through. That's why I tell you, that's why like I went to a practice one day. I'm not even gonna say which team it was, but I went to a practice one day and the coaches was very frustrated and they were just cursing and da 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 da, and just having the guys were just not functioning right. And I'm standing on the sideline and I'm looking at them at practice. And at the end of practice, the O-line coach gets together with his O-line people and I'm standing there and I'm thinking all these things about what's happening. And finally, the coach looks over to me and said, Coach V, what do you think? Oh, I don't know why he said that. I said to him, you know what I think? And I started talking to the players. I said, you guys weren't listening to them at all, were you? And they all was like, nope. I said, as soon as they start cursing and yelling, you shut down, didn't you? And they said, yep. I didn't hear a word they said. And I said, how about that? I said, you know what? This is what I told the players. I said, I'm not the one to scream and curse you out because you're not doing what you shouldn't be doing, what you should be doing better on the field. I'm not going to do that. But you're going to play 100% for me. And you know why? And they were like looking at me and they were like, why? I said, because I love you. And they was like, yep. We're going to play for you. We're going to play hard. I said, that's right. You're going to give me 110% because I love you. And you don't want to disappoint me. They said, yep, that's right. I said, and I looked to the coach and I said, let me just explain something to you. When a lot is going on a young man's life and he's having a hard time at home, this football field is not solving that. He can't leave it immediately to come on your field to do your plays, right? Whatever's going on to make him to the point where he's not functioning and executing, there's something not right. Something's wrong. Maybe his head is at home where he just saw something that was violent. And now he's got to come on the field and be violent. He's not there. But coaches just want to see to execute. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. So I went around to all the coaches and this is what ODAAP, this is ODAAP. I went around to all the coaches, starting with the head coach, and I said, Coach, tomorrow, I want you to do something different when you start practice. Do restorative circles. Break up into your positions. Ask the players how they're doing. Is there anything on your mind you need to get out? You understand what I'm saying? Let's start this practice different. Let's give them a time to decompress, to be seen as human beings, right? And not machines on the field. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I thought to myself when I left the field, I thought, I wonder if they're going to do what I told them to do. You know what I mean? Big game coming up. I thought, are they going to do what I told them to do? Next day, I'm the type, I pop in on the field. I just come and visit you. I don't necessarily tell you when I'm coming. I just show up, right? Because if you're a part of ODAAP, I just show up. And I'm watching the coaches to see how they're doing, to see where I can bridge the gap between them and the players that they may not be thinking, right? So the next day I hit up the coaches and I said, how'd it go? And they said it was much better. We had a much better practice. We did the circles and it was much better. The boys were more engaged. They were fully there. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They're screaming and hollering. The boys are tuning them out. One boy said to me, I don't know why they think cursing at us is going to work. I don't know, baby. I don't know. I don't know. And you know what? When I go to a game and I'm with my young men and they doing something dumb on the field and the coach is yelling at him, I pull him to the side, take his face and say, listen to me. Are you giving me 100% out there? And he's like, no. I said, go and give me 100%. He said, all right. And he'll go out there and he'll give me 100%. Because what? A lot of our young men need to be acknowledged, seen, heard. And that's all it takes. A little bit of that can make a total difference in their life, let alone their game, right? Let alone their game. And that's really essentially what happened in 2014 with that article you just showed. That's all that happened. It was, I believe in you. Don't you dare disappoint me. Make me proud. That's a lot of what it was, because they had the talent. They were just uncontrolled,
Yeah, and that's one of the things you express, not to me, but I think it's in you to say it, where it stuck with me, and you weren't even training me how to do something. You said, and you can explain it through this podcast of, it's certain things that I can say to these young men that can penetrate and go straight to them, that you can try screaming, cursing, whatever, and it won't resonate. And I felt that, and and you wasn't even talking to me, but I believe it though. I understand it, what you're saying right there. And one of the things, Doug, who we met with, who was a part of the Black Men Hill team, he was like, all young men want to be respected. And as soon as they feel disrespected on any level from anybody, you done lost them.
It's over. Yes, most definitely. Not just you too, Reg. You want to feel respected too. I want to be loved. You want to be respected. Simple as that. I want to be loved. You want to be respected. And I make it my business to show utmost respect to any Black man even one that's being ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. Okay. I don't know how many times some guys talking foolishness and I say, thank you, sir. And it's over. you know, at the end of the day, it's thank you, sir. You know, and it was like, sir. I was like, yes, sir. Yes. You know
one
what
of
I'm saying?
one of the things that I was able to pull up too. This is
Uh,
Coach V's Instagram for ODAAP and some of the work that they're doing. And if y'all can see, if you're looking at it on the YouTube, that's me in the background. Me and Coach V were at a community event this past summer. And one of the and if you don't feel comfortable sharing, because that might be proprietary, please don't. But you had a mirror up. Like, can you explain that whole concept and what you
yes.
were doing?
Yeah, now this is a case in point. This young man right here that you see in this picture, his name is Malik.
Mm-hmm.
Malik, I work with Malik doing ODAAP. He came to me that summer, and said to me, Coach V, I'm going to be coming back to Philadelphia to go to community college. I want to help with ODAAP. This is what he said to me. And guess what? He showed up with that community event with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could call him the day or tomorrow and he would come out to an event. This is what I mean about we don't love you and leave you. I coached him. He was in high school. He's a college student now, and he's coming out with me to events. It's more than just a program. It's a family. I will say that. At this event, it was me and another player, Leo. He goes to Shippensburg. He's there now.
I went
He
to
came
ship.
with,
I went to ship too, by the
yeah,
way.
went to ship. Yeah. So a Leo was there too. Man, hit that right there. That's a Leo right there. He came too. And what we did, we had a mirror up, right? And we wanted people to look at themselves. And we gave them a little pen and pad, and they were to write down, what they saw when they looked in the mirror. And what was on the mirror was defy the insecurities. Defy the insecurities. And it was amazing to see how many people didn't even want to look at themselves in the mirror.
Mm.
Everybody, guys, girls, nobody. What do you see? And a Leo, this gentleman right here, he was so good at it.
He was.
He was so good at it. He would bring people to the mirror and
Mm-hmm.
say, what do you see? What do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And he was really fully there, talking to everybody. And that is something that he'll never forget in his life, a Leo. He was one of those young men in the very early years that I was coaching at Penwood. Now he's in college, like his second year in college. And I met him when he was very young. And now he's still with me. He did that. What do you see in that mirror? I'll never forget, one girl was like, I don't see anything in that mirror. He was like, you don't see anything? But you're beautiful. He wasn't trying to hit on her. He was just telling her, you should see something, you know? So that we had that mirror up. And a lot of times with my young men, I want them to see more than just, the fake. I want them to see what's really going on with them. And yeah, Mir right here, I work with him. Mir right here, this with the blue and him, coach with him. He knows me as Coach V too.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in touch with him. Always, how you doing? I'm doing well. And look, he's helping us too with ODAAP. He's right on the side with us too. So no, it's not a love him and leave him. And this right here, this is something that we were doing together. This was a communication game. Right here, there's a little circle, and each one on end of the rope has to lift that circle over top of that person in the middle, but they cannot touch them. That circle can't touch them. And the reason for that is we want to see how the two people on the opposite ends of the rope communicate. Because part of having a healthy relationship, in the area of preventing violence, right, is
Mm-hmm.
being able to communicate in a stressful situation. So we did this exercise, so that people could work together to accomplish a task. And it was interesting to see husband and wives do it, boyfriend and girlfriends do it. And in between that, you have to say, excuse me, what you're doing right now, and at the same time, like do a little lesson in there and get them to realize how they're communicating. You know, are you talking to each other? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Is he supposed to know what your motion is or your face is?
Now
You know?
it was lovely seeing it too, man, because people were really trying hard to like communicate with one another to get the goal accomplished, and it was a good lesson in
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I want to be loved, you want to be respected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Women who don't feel loved, right? That's a problem. But part of loving them is communicating with them, right? You don't say anything. You never talk to me. I am talking to you.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Right. Now trust me, I'm learning that too. And as you're talking about like respect and love, that's usually our main like argument is like, you know, showing enough love, and it's like, well, I feel like I'm getting disrespected. That's one of the
Respected,
main
right? Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
how
Exactly.
that works like that.
Yeah,
But
it does. It does.
I just wanted to pull it up so that way people can go and follow and you know stay connected with the work that you're doing. So please check in if you're listening to it on the podcast is at ODAAP, and I'll put it in the description so you
Look,
guys.
scroll down again. I want to point something to you. I don't know if you saw it. This is some of the kids I work with. One of my guys right here, this picture right here, me standing on the bleachers. Now, let me tell you this really quickly about this picture right here. One of my young men who started a clothing brand, who was, I don't know if he was in that first picture, 2014 picture, the one about Huffington Post. One of my young men from that time started a clothing business, and he had an event. It was about almost 100 guys there. They were bawling and everything. They were having the battle of the brands, you know. So it was a lot of basketball. So about 100 young men there. And he hits me up. He says, Coach V, I want you to bring ODAAP to my event. Coach V, I want you to bring ODAAP to my event. 100 young men almost. It was a good 60.
Right.
At this event. And he asked me to come and speak. And so I got up on those bleachers. The guys was like, be quiet, right? And I talked to all those guys in that park that day, only because one of my players from 2014 asked me to come and speak to his event that day. That is not loving it. That's not leaving them after you love them. There is no, I went home and forgot. There is always something of ODAAP. Once you're affected by ODAAP, you are affected by ODAAP. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's in you.
That's how it's in you. And the truth is, we don't work with everybody because some people aren't ready for us. If I come on your field, like I did with that particular team that day, and I'm watching you and I'm standing around and I see something, you have given me the, you know, the green light to come and speak to you about it.
Right.
You might want to try this today. Well, there's a reason why he's behaving that way. What do you think it might be? Let's think about that for a minute. Did you pull him to the side and talk to him yet? You know, I've had to on the sideline grab coach's shirt and pull him back and go, stop. But no man is going to let you just do that to him unless you have their respect. And I work hard for that respect. And I know where my line lies and the boundaries that I shouldn't cross. Do you know what I mean? I work hard for that respect. You know, I don't take it for granted that I can pull a coach and say, hey, you need to back up. You need to bring it down. Men don't want to hear that. Not in the heat of a game.
Right.
But if I come next to you and I just like do like that, that's telling you that you need to chill. And all the coaches I work with, even if they're in the heat of the moment, they are listening because they know the impact our work has on them and the players. But not everybody's ready for this, Reginald. To be quite honest, not everybody's ready for ODAAP. Some people like to stick to the old way of things, you know?
No, I could believe it. And that actually was one of my final questions to you as well as we begin to wrap up is what do you say or do or advice you have for those who can't, I don't want to say can't get a Coach V. Say Coach V can't be she just now is getting out into like, all right, I'm not under one roof, I'm spreading myself. But
Yeah.
say if you had advice for coaches who are with young men on a consistent basis and in starting something like this, and what advice were, of course you gave them the book, but what kind of things can they start to implement into like making sure that they're giving this prevention, violence prevention to their players early?
Now, I will say this, a lot of coaches are doing this already, but that huddle before practice starts, that huddle, that camaraderie right before practice starts, you matter, I see you, is invaluable.
Mm.
You're not, I just don't want you for your talent. I care about you as an individual, as a person. You know, my thing is, and this happens a lot in football too, your position coach should be the one that knows you the most.
Mm.
And I always tell my young men, the word family in football, most of the times after high school, it's not involved in it. It's not there anymore. Because in college, it's all business. Forget the NFL. Business, business, business,
Mm.
you know. But as a high school football coach, you have such a beautiful opportunity to create a safe space for guys. And nowhere it's done the best right before you practice. Just stop everything, pull everybody together, and communicate, be human, treat everybody like human beings and not something you can get from them. Take a minute. How are you doing? How is everybody? Something as simple as that is a start. I would say that it's not very hard actually. It's just when you just want to do your thing and that's it. I mean, you can go to any practice right now. The guys come off the field, they warm up and they go to practicing. There's no interacting. How are you doing? What's your day like? That's what I would say. And another thing I'm doing right now with the coaches that I'm working with, I'm going to be reading this book with them. We're doing a book club.
Mm.
Wow. We're reading this book, What Happened to You? Okay. It's from Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. It's conversation on trauma, resilience, and healing. I have invited the coaches that I work with to do this book discussion with me so that they can start to think and open up their mind to understanding that their player may be acting a certain way because of what happened to him, not so much because he just wants to be the pain in your butt that day.
That is a phenomenal read, and I actually have that sitting on my counter to read. So I'm glad I'm on the right track according to Coach V.
You're on the right track.
Please go and check out ODAAP.org and some of the things to keep up to date. I got the website up now, and you can see all of the different programs and different initiatives that Coach V has have going on. One of my last question, unless you have anything else you want to add, is what does this quote mean to you? It's easier to build strong children than to repair a broken man, by Frederick Douglass.
Well, I see it in that sentence, I see my dad. I see a broken man, who had perhaps, if he had had a Coach V, right, in his life, maybe he wouldn't have made the decisions that he made. Um, it's easier now for me working with my young men to make sure that they don't have to become broken men. You know, my dad was a broken man, and hands down, even if he had somebody in his life, because of learned behaviors and habits and things, it would have been a lot harder to try to get him to think differently, which is something I experience with men right now in the coaching realm, right? Some of them who, I've heard more than a not, well, that's the way I was coached. That wasn't right. You shouldn't have been coached like that. Do you know what I'm saying? So they want to hold on to that old way of coaching realizing that they were traumatized by their coach, but they just thought it was the right thing to do. And now it become, a lot of things are changing about the way we do things because our kids are different now. So, you know, I'm not saying it's hopeless for a broken man, but it's definitely a little harder. How about that?
Well,
And
no, I'll say this to you, Coach V. That's where they come to Black Man Hill, and then if they don't get it in the
better.
youth from Coach V, if you somehow miss that wonderful opportunity of violence prevention, you grow up and you become a man, and then you say, "All right, I'm gonna go to Black Man."
Hey, listen, I'm already like, I got a small grant, and as small as it is, I wrote you guys into it. You
Mm,
understand what I'm saying? Why? Because I want you as a resource for some of my coaches and my young men.
mm,
I already told you, as I get together with my young men, I've built enough trust that whoever I bring, they trust. You feel
mm-hmm,
me? That's how it has to be. That's why I can't just put anybody before my guys, because they trust me. So I'm bringing legit to them. So your organization is one of those organizations that I'm going to be putting before my young men as resources, to be
mm-hmm.
quite honest, to hold group sessions with them. So I know y'all gonna get ready because I already told you.
Yes, man. We had
I'm
that.
bringing you in to
Yes,
my guys.
yes, we had
Yeah.
a wonderful conversation at the top of the
Yes.
year, and I
Yes.
appreciated it because again, um, I started it, and I'm gonna end the same way of giving you your flowers because of the legendary work that you are doing. So anytime that I get to align myself with a legend, of course I'm gonna take the opportunity and be a part of that, man. And
Yeah.
I love all of the work. Or do you have any final remarks or any comments that you would leave to young men out there as we close out?
Yeah. Hey, the truth is, it may be really hard right now. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things going on, but you are loved. Hit ODAP up. Hit us up. If there's any way we can help you guys, anything at all, you let us know. If we can't help you, we're gonna help. We're gonna find somebody too. We work through the medium of sports, and that being said, I'm encouraging you to get involved in something other than the streets, something other than just don't waste your life. Get involved in something. Boxing, at 6032 Diamond Street, right there, 16th and Diamond, they have a boxing group there that takes place. I think it's on Wednesdays, on Thursdays, I don't know, Monday and Wednesday, something like that. There's boxing in the city. If that's not your thing, there's chess clubs. Like, find something to be a part of outside of your norm. And more important, this is what you need to understand: there's more to you than what meets the eye. There's more to you. There's greatness in you, great potential in you. You just haven't had it tapped yet. So I'm encouraging you, first of all, think about the fact that there's more to you than what meets the eye. There's great potential in you. And understand that they said that Einstein could not learn. His teacher told him, you cannot learn. Einstein. And he was brilliant. So I just want you guys to understand there's more to you than what meets the eye. And I totally believe in your potential. So hit us up, get involved, do something different. Don't waste your life.
And
That's
on
what I
that
got to say
note,
to that.
make sure you stay connected with ODAP and Coach V and hit her up
Yeah.
with whatever you need as far as bringing her in for speaking engagements, violent prevention programming, and just talking and picking her brain for that knowledge. And because again, a legend in the making because of the work that you've already done. And please remember that subscribe, download, share, whatever you do to get this information out, because we need to highlight more individuals like Coach V that's doing the work out here to make sure we save the lives of young Black men. So please
Yes.
continue to do all that and share her story. And on that note, remember that this platform has never been about a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative
Yes.
place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.